Evil Dead 2, released in 1987, has a Mexican TV cut with alternate footage, and not only that, it has a work print, deleted scenes, and over 7 hours of footage from the set that hasn't been released publicly. Today I want to talk about as much of this as I possibly can. Let's get into it. Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn is nothing short of a masterwork of horror. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell returned to fulfill our wildest nightmares, and they exceeded our expectations. So there's a ton of different stuff we're going to get into in this video. Let me lay it out for you. First, we'll talk about the early scripted differences. Then we'll talk about the deleted scenes. Then we'll talk about Greg Nicotero's behind-the-scenes VHS collection. Then we'll talk about Vern Hyde's behind-the-scenes camcorder footage. Then we'll get into the Mexican TV cut, and finally, the work print. Let's jump right into it with the early scripted differences. The early 1985 draft was one that was intended to directly follow up the first film, with some footage from the original at the beginning to bridge the two. This script had a few more sets and locations as well. The second draft from May of 1985 completely reworks the opening. For this draft, it's more similar to the theatrical version we know, but not entirely. It still has the scene as a retelling of what already happened, with voiceover. But the script overall does play out mostly like the finished film, including Ash ending up in 1300 AD at the end. The later drafts went on to resemble the theatrical cut more and more, reframing the opening to the opening that confused a lot of people, and for years made people think this movie was a remake of the original. As far as scripting goes, there's a lot of small changes here and there, but those were the ones I thought were worth mentioning. Considering what a near-perfect film this is, it's hard to imagine it any other way. And some of these ideas in the script are interesting, but overall, I'm happy with what they filmed. So now let's talk deleted scenes. When Linda's severed head and Ash are fighting, they shot a reverse motion shot that showed Linda's snake tongue going into Ash's mouth. Apparently while watching it, Sam Raimi declared, "That's the worst reverse motion acting I've ever seen." The idea of reverse motion shots, which have been utilized in Evil Dead films, is fascinating in itself. With practical effects, this was commonplace in filmmaking, and sometimes it still is. There are so many interesting ways to get the shot you want. Then we have the Chop Top sequence. Featuring the possessed Ed, this would take place while he's being dismembered. After his head is chopped in two, he falls over, and the part of his head that falls off starts crawling around on the floor, and his corpse continues to fight Ash without a head until finally dismembered. Robert Tappert said of the scene, "It was too wacko of a shot," with Sam Raimi adding, "It was a very good effect, but the scene had already climaxed when his head was lopped. That was just an afterthought, an additional shot we didn't need to tell the story, and wasn't thrilling to the audience in terms of pacing." The character of Bobby Joe originally had a more intense death, being completely split in half when rammed with a tree. At one point it was going to happen to a male character, which I would have appreciated a little more, to be honest. The scene ended with a huge fountain of blood shooting up from the ground, which we later do see a shot similar to this in Army of Darkness. Then we have the squirrel attack. Yes, the squirrel attack, you heard me right. This isn't in the script, but they did shoot it. In the forest, while possessed, Ash sees a squirrel. He aggressively picks it up and just bites into it like he's Ozzy Osbourne. Poor little fella. This is one of the more talked about deleted scenes because we actually have some footage of it that's been on the DVDs. Although the footage in this clip is not that footage, we'll get into that later. This just shows that Evil Dead fans are a different breed, just yearning and begging for Sam Raimi's table scraps, which is kind of the entire point of this video, so yeah. So let's switch gears and talk about Greg Nicotero's behind-the-scenes camcorder footage. By the way, there are links to some of my sources in the description for this video down below. The big ones being the Book of the Dead website, who's the one who ended up getting these tapes and transferring them from VHS to DVD. The entire history of the tapes is written about on the website, but it included over 8 hours and 35 minutes of footage that was filmed during pre-production and production. Now, not all this footage has been released, and it likely never will be, but he has posted a few images from it, and it looks pretty cool. A little bit of this stuff was released as a special feature on DVD releases. That's where that squirrel attack footage comes from on the DVDs. And I'm sure he would have written about anything else spectacular if the tapes included it, but mostly it seems like it just shows the excellent work and fun time it was to make that movie. So again, the squirrel scene is footage of that scene being filmed, not the footage of the actual movie, you know what I mean? Then we have Vern Hyde's behind-the-scenes camera footage, which runs about 72 minutes, and you can find this one circulating on the internet. This footage seems to be more general on-set footage as opposed to the Nicotero tapes that were more focused on the special effects, and I've included a link in the description so you can check this out if you want to. It has a bunch of stuff with Bruce Campbell spinning around on wires in front of a blue screen that is just crazy to watch. I highly recommend checking that out. Now let's get into what I think is by far the most interesting and worth watching alternate version of Evil Dead 2. The Mexican TV cut, also known as the severely edited for television cut. This cut started making the rounds on the internet like 10 years ago in 2016 or so, and actually has a lot of footage previously unseen and unreleased and essentially forgotten until this was making the rounds again. And like most TV cuts, it loses a lot of the gore, and I would honestly lose my mind trying to point all of that out to you. There's also a lot more inserts of the evil force zooming through the woods throughout the film. But if you want to know every change, again, Book of the Dead has you covered. There's a link in the description. The changes start immediately with the opening credits that take place before the title card, with the cast names over smoke and read aloud.
Bruce Campbell, Theodore Raimi.
Not really a big change, but worth pointing out since the changes are immediate. The next big change comes during the scene where Ash gives Linda the necklace. Their kiss is longer, and in additional footage, we see them dancing together, ending with them in an embrace on the ground about to get it on. They have to replace the gore with anything they have in the footage that works for the story still. They're trying to get it to a proper television runtime with slots for commercials and everything. And banging your girlfriend's a lot more wholesome than severing her head. We do get something really cool though. The Book of the Dead is really only in the first part of the movie, and this scene here explains why. After Ash buries Linda, he stumbles back to the cabin, he finds the Book of the Dead on the floor, and tosses it into the fire. He takes a moment in anguish over Linda, and he steps back outside, and then we're back into the theatrical cut. Like, seeing the book burned is very interesting. It adds a whole new element to the movie. The only other TV cuts I can think of that changed the movie this much were like the Child's Play ones. But I've only been digging into these for a few months now, so. The scene with Ash zooming through the woods, which is the indicator that this is now Evil Dead 2, has been extended as well. And it seems that they essentially used the full shot here instead of the theatrical version, which has hidden cuts in it. It's just stuff that pads out the runtime a little more. But hey, if you're like me, you enjoy those extra few seconds. Later on, as Ash is driving away from the cabin, this version has him grabbing a box of cereal laying around in his car, and eating some right from the box, before choking on it and forcing himself to cough it up, of course. I mean, I find this scene amusing. He's just been through absolute hell, and he's got a lot more to go through. The man is starving, he impulsively saw a box of cereal and grabbed it. I loved it, honestly, it was great. The scene where Ash chainsaws his own hand is obviously edited down a lot, and instead ends on a shot of the cabin from the outside with the same audio of Ash screaming and the chainsaw sounds. There isn't much to say about the stuff that's just straight up cut, to be honest. It's not like the dialogue where they replace it sometimes and they say goofy stuff instead. The scene with the laughing room and objects is heavily extended, with new shots of stuff laughing at Ash. Even the Kandarian dagger itself laughs right into the camera. It has a fun moment when Ash finally stops laughing, wipes a tear from his eye, and then starts up again. There's another really cool shot in this version added to the scene when possessed Ash is fighting Jake. He turns towards the camera and runs with a sick red backlit background. I mean, it's just very visually pleasing, I'm not gonna lie. This version also reinstates the squirrel eating scene we talked about earlier, and this is where that footage comes from that we have that's from the actual movie as opposed to behind the scenes footage of it. The last part I thought was really cool that was added to this version happens when Ash is sent back in time. They show his journey through time by flashing images on screen of historical events, famous artworks, and various photos and depictions of different eras. What's cool is there are actually some frames from Sam Raimi's Super 8 films that he shot with Bruce Campbell back in the day. It's a fun and cool way to show the travel through time. Sure, it's no Contact, but this is Evil Dead. Lastly, let's talk about the work print for Evil Dead 2. It only runs 37 minutes, so it isn't the full feature. It basically contains the opening and ending. It has 4 extra little bits that are worth talking about. The first is a little extra bit as Ash discovers the destroyed bridge.
Well, that's no problem for me. I can always go back to... No.
The second is a shot of the piano with steam pipes coming out of it. The third is the talking demon head scene, runs just a little bit longer. And the last thing is the shot of Ash traveling through time vortex has additional VFX and shots included, but really, visually it doesn't offer much new. The only thing I found mildly interesting about this work print was the temp tracks for the music. Some of it's from the original Evil Dead, some of it's from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and some of it's from Death Wish. I would say, honestly, just skip this version and check out the Mexican TV cut. When it comes to Evil Dead 2, one of the best horror films ever made, there is just a ton out there to explore. And I highly recommend you check out a few of the links in the description down below. And let me know what you guys think of all these scenes and different versions in the comments down below. Love to hear from you. Quick thank you to my channel members and Patreon subscribers. If you want more ecto-violence, including exclusive videos and behind-the-scenes content, become a member by clicking the links in the description below.